The following podcast is produced and edited by members of Arlington Community Media, Inc., or ACMi, the Community Access Center for the town of Arlington, Massachusetts. Find out how you can make your own podcast at acmi.tv.
Welcome back to the Jason Russell House in Arlington Center for the next episode of Riding with Revere. I'm your host, Jennifer, and returning with me today is silversmith, industrialist, and patriot Paul Revere.
Hello again.
And we also have our favorite Arlington local, Jane.
Hey there.
Okay, when we were last together, Paul took us on his harrowing journey as he recounted his famous midnight ride. And of course, we are celebrating the 250th birthday of our American Revolution. A lot has changed since then, though here at the well-preserved Jason Russell House, not much has changed, except for the summer beer garden.
Yes, I can attest to the fact that there was no beer garden here or anywhere back in my day. We did have beer, however, just not in a garden.
But you drink beer at a tavern, right, Paul?
Oh, why, yes. Yes, I would.
Well, Paul, I am happy to report that there are now many taverns you would visit in Arlington. And I can also report that before I went to my favorite tavern the other day, I took a trip to our fabulous Robbins Library to learn more about this. For a period starting in the 1880s through around 1978, you couldn't get a drink in the town.
Wait a minute, really? Some fellows I know used to call it drunken monotony.
That's right. I found out about the Black Horse Tavern at the corner of Mass Ave and Tufts Street, where on April 18th, 1775, members of two committees, Safety and Supplies, got together to discuss opposing the British. The Wayside Inn was on Mass Ave near Arlington Center. The building is still there, right near Helena's. Your friend William Dawes
Rode by the Wayside. Yes, he told me that. Did you know about Cooper's Tavern?
I was going to ask you about that place.
It was well known during the Revolution because it was the site of a gathering on April 19th of about 12 men who were well over fighting age who ambushed a British supply wagon. 2 who were unarmed were killed here by British troops fleeing Concord, and those same troops looted the establishment.
Wow, I had no idea this happened.
There are historic markers there today commemorating the roles the Black Horse and Cooper's Tavern played in the Revolution. Fast forward to the 1880s, when the town of Arlington went dry for almost a century.
This was way before Prohibition, right? Why would they have done that?
Turns out that the 1880s was the first Prohibition era in America. Fear at the sheer number of saloons and some intense anti-immigrant sentiment combined to produce a wave of states, cities, and towns to ban alcohol. Also in this period, a new non-alcoholic carbonated beverage debuted in New England with a future Arlington connection. Moxie was originally a patent medicine made from gentian root. In 1884, it became a soft drink and went on to become, briefly, the #1 soft drink in the country. Francis Thompson, whose father invented Moxie, was an Arlington resident and ran the Moxie Company as its president until 1939. Thompson and his wife provided money for scholarships to Arlington High School graduates, which still benefits our students to this day. Thompson Elementary School is dedicated to their generosity.
I applaud that generosity, but I'm still curious about the alcohol ban.
Sorry, I only knew the term moxie as another way of saying courage or guts. I was fascinated to learn that it had another meaning, especially one that brings us back to Arlington. Anyway, back to our intoxicating beverages. The ban on alcohol lasted through the repeal of national prohibition in America in 1932, all the way till 1978, when a limited number of restaurants were finally granted liquor licenses, including one of my favorites, Jimmy's on Mass Ave, still serving to this day.
And I remember voting to completely repeal that ban in the early 90s. Couldn't believe it took so long.
Since then, Arlington's restaurant scene has taken off, serving almost every cuisine you could think of. There's even one with monogamy in its name.
Okay, everyone. I have a quick game for us to play. I'm going to say 3 words, and you all tell me what one thing they have in common.
I was not prepared for a game.
Well, be prepared to lose, Jane. I love a competition.
Okay, here they are. Ice, lettuce, and picture frames.
Let's see.
I immediately thought of iceberg lettuce, but that's not right.
What about the frames?
Right, what about the frames?
I'm going to spoil my own game, only because we don't have a lot of time, and let you know what ice, lettuce, and picture frames have in common is they are all important products that were once famously produced here in Arlington.
Aha! That's exactly what I was going to say.
Of course you were, Paul. 3 stories not just about products, but about Arlington. Let's start with ice.
I remember when the ice trade began.
Right, Paul. In Arlington, it started around 1806. There's a great drawing from 1852 that shows the ice harvest on a frozen-over Spy Pond. In New England, cold weather and deep ponds formed ice that was pure, clear, tough, and compact. Arlington sent its valuable ice to Boston and shipped it all around the world.
Then the ice made it world-famous Arlington.
The William T. Wood Company on Mass Ave supplied New England with all the tools needed to harvest ice: steel scrapers, wooden scrapers, plows, saws, spades, hooks, everything. At first, French Canadians came down to cut and prepare the ice. Later, many of the farm workers who helped make Arlington the market garden success it was in warmer months spent winters working on Spy Pond for the ice harvest. And if you're wondering, yes, the ice biz was yet another industry destroyed by a now familiar culprit: refrigeration.
Still ecstatic we have refrigeration.
Speaking of Arlington's market gardens, let's move on to lettuce. Arlington was filled with market gardens and hothouses that produced for Boston's wholesale market. At one point, there were 60 farms and 100 acres of hothouses. Names of these farms will sound familiar even today: Tappan, Locke, Wyman, and Crosby. Arlington lettuce and Crosby's Arlington Pure White Celery were well known nationwide for their quality.
Arlington was famous around the country for lettuce and celery? Seriously?
Absolutely. The workers who tended the Arlington market gardens were mostly Italian immigrants who commuted by trolley from Boston's North End. The invention of refrigerated transport put the local industry out of business here. Crosby was the last commercial farm standing and was eventually split up for housing in 1957.
Well, you saved the frames for last, didn't you?
Yep, the story of picture frames, which is part of Arlington's rich mill history. In 1637, Captain George Cook recognized Arlington's Mill Brook was a natural asset due to its fast-running water. He built the first mill along Mill Brook, which ground grain into flour for farmers in surrounding towns. Then in 1681, a grist mill was built near Mill Brook and Mass Ave after a dam was constructed. This grist mill became a sawmill in 1704 and was adapted in 1860 to grind spices. Finally, in 1864, Charles and Frederick Schwamm bought the site and started to manufacture oval and circle picture frames. It became the foremost oval portrait frame producer in America. Schwamm stayed in operation until 1969, and it is now a historic site that is still producing those frames, the oldest continuously operating mill site in the USA. People know it now as the Old Schwamm Mill. By the way, Charles and Frederick's brother Theodore had a business manufacturing piano cases that became Arlington's largest business by the end of the 19th century. But it wasn't refrigeration that chilled that line of work. It was the radio, which became the primary focus of household entertainment, drastically reducing piano purchases. After the 1920s, this Schwamm outfit changed to producing windowsills and door frames and stayed in operation until the 1970s, when lots of manufacturing left the USA.
Not to brag, but my copper company never left the country. We founded it in 1801, and it is still going strong, still in Massachusetts.
You have so many reasons to brag, Paul. You know, I think it's an untold story about you, that you were a big innovator of technology for your business, of good labor practices for our new industries.
Well, thank you, but I was going to add that people might not know that the statue of me and my horse back home in the North End was sculpted by an Arlington resident, Cyrus Dowlin.
The one and only.
All right. Well, we're going to have to leave it there for now, but join us for part 3 of Riding with Revere. We're going to flip the script and take Paul for a ride through the Arlington of today. Thanks for joining us, and see you soon.
Till we meet again.